This week on the WriterCon podcast.
You have to really be passionate about writing because writing is a process that you have to do mostly for yourself.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Do you have a desire to write? Every successful writer started with their first book. All it takes is determination and knowledge, and WriterCon can provide that knowledge. Your hosts are #1 national best-selling writer William Bernhardt, author of more than 60 books, including The Superman Wars, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files series and Shadow of the Taj.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. Hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us today. Lots of news in the writing world lately, including the big bombshell for this week, a New York Times story about a short story that has won a major literary prize, the Commonwealth, and was published online by Granta, a major literary magazine, and now appears to have been written at least in part by AI. This, of course, comes on the heels of the story we featured in a previous podcast last month about Shy Girl, the novel that was yanked by Hachette after, again, the New York Times pointed out that it had been written at least 70% by AI. So I'm just wondering, Jesse, is this like the real Skynet? You know, it's not that they're going to be Terminator robots. It's first the AI takes over our entertainment, and then they can take over the world.
It's just another reminder that, like, I give other people too much credit in detecting what's real and what's not, right?
Yeah.
Because not only are there tools to help you detect whether something's AI or not, you know, after something has won at least one award, you don't think someone would be like, hey, who wrote this? Let's talk to that person. Like, who accepted the award for these, for these awards that this thing won? Did it have ceremonies? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, a person, I'm sure, took credit for it, but it's like, Shy Girl, remember that author's response was, it must have been an editor. My editor must have done something. And, okay, whatever. Lara, are you beginning to wonder how you, or for that matter, any writer, can compete in a world where books apparently capable of winning prizes and getting published are being generated almost instantaneously by computer programs? We were hearing on the news the other night, they were talking about new AI programs that are capable of growing and learning and expanding even without human intervention or, human assistance. And I thought, yep, that's Skynet, all right. I mean, how do you work as a writer?
If we could be real for a minute, I really have been feeling pretty discouraged lately. I've had some health issues over the past few years. We've had some family health issues that we've been dealing with. There's just been a lot going on, and it's kind of a heavy world that we're living in. Finding that time to write is challenging for sure. And then you add on things like this. You add on things like, we talked in another podcast about how 4 million books are now being published every single year.
Yep.
And there are people just churning out garbage, one after another. So is it discouraging? Absolutely. Because my time is very limited and stretched very thin. And when you've got that time, if you manage to carve it out and you sit there thinking, is anybody even going to read it now? Because it's so difficult. I will agree. However, I'm still writing. So
good.
We've talked about how you have to be very passionate. And I think to make it, you have to just not be able to not write. Does that make sense? That's too many knots in one sentence.
I got the idea.
You have to write, or you're just restless and uncomfortable and miserable. If you can do anything else, do it.
Some writers are still breaking out, though. We both read, or you might be in the middle of Yesteryear. That's the Trad Wife novel that we covered and it's doing huge business.
It's
Romanticy's
possible,
doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's getting a lot harder to get attention. You go online and wave your hands in the air, but everybody else is doing the same thing.
Yes. And then you have all of these people crawling out of the woodwork, promising that they're going to help you be seen and trying to convince you to part with your hard-earned money. Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
Well, the AI slop email, which is basically 3 paragraphs of flatter you about how wonderful your work is, and which they can do convincingly because the AI has already scraped your book or an interview or something, and followed by some big con job.
I had one that read almost exactly like my book description, like from from sales platforms. It just looked exactly like my book. I'm like, that's my book description. You didn't read anything.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know this was going to launch on such a happy note, but just in case anybody is still listening, today our interview is with Christina LePort. She's a cardiologist, but also a writer of medical thrillers. Her novels, which include Dissection, Change of Heart, and Defrosted, offer a unique blend of suspense and medical insight, and we will talk to her about all this and much more. But first, the news. All right, news story number 1. Curry Richens is sentenced to life. If that doesn't mean anything to you yet, cast your mind back a couple of years when I hope you recall the story. We cover it on this podcast, but it's been a long minute since then, about this woman, Curry Richens, who was accused of murdering her husband and then writing, actually it turns out it was ghostwritten, a children's book to help her children overcome the grief, which she then appeared on television to promote, and some people thought this was all very suspect. I remember when we discussed it, Jesse commenting that, if you're going to murder your husband, don't write a book about it. That just seems really unwise. Yes. Good advice. Well, this story is back and attracting really very little attention. I thought, given how much, her arrest got all kinds of attention, but now that it's resolved in courts, not so much. Anyway, the prosecutors say that Curry Richens, who was a Utah member of 3, was in terrible financial situation when she fatally poisoned her very wealthy husband with a fentanyl-laced cocktail. She tried to deflect suspicion, prosecutors said, and make money by commissioning a children's book about grief, ghostwritten for her. A forensic accountant testified that her financial situation was, this is his word, imploding prior to her husband's untimely death because she'd borrowed millions of dollars to support her failing real estate business. The prosecutor told jurors that she asked her house cleaner to buy her, quote, illicit street drugs, end quote. And get this, she left her husband a poisoned sandwich on Valentine's Day in an attempt to kill him for money. I mean, I almost have to... it's all right, honey. I trust anything you give me, especially on Valentine's Day. But other people might want to look out. This is my favorite part of the story, though. Another man who said on the witness stand he was having an affair with this woman at the time testified that she asked him if he had ever killed anyone and how it made him feel.
The important part.
Yeah, seems to me like a red flag. Maybe something you should cover before you get into bed.
I would
someone.
say the reddest flag.
Yes. Well, whatever.
Have you ever murdered somebody?
Now.
And how did it make you feel? Did you enjoy it?
And would you like a sandwich?
Yeah.
Jesse.
Terrible.
Other than the obvious takeaways here about not eating Valentine's Day sandwiches, what can we learn from this story?
is just another example of rich people thinking they can get away with anything and not being good at it. Like, the amount of forethought not put into this crime is staggering to me. The amount of breadcrumbs she left that lead directly to her is like
3 different poison attempts.
Yeah. Has she never read like a murder mystery novel?
A good one.
Not seriously, not one. Like, telling people about it, like having a witness to the drug buying, like all of the things, just like don't do that if you're trying to get away with a crime. And then writing a book about it. It's truly insane. It's an insane story. I'm looking forward to the maybe HBO or Showtime movie about this at some point.
Oh, sure.
For sure.
God, if they don't, this should be my next nonfiction book.
Yeah, seriously.
Now, this is a story. I could make up some of this stuff.
This is
Lara,
definitely,
I just want to say that if there's ever a time when you desperately need money, just tell me.
Well,
we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
The murder plot is so much more challenging. Yeah, well, rest assured, I don't have millions of dollars in loans. So
she says.
That is, right. But
that's something a murderer would say.
Okay, news story number 2. And this relates to our opening story about the AI short story and all that kind of stuff, because thanks to a new company, human writers, you remember them, human writers can now verify that they are human just in case there's some doubt. Like, AI work is winning contests, it's getting publishing contracts, and I assume that at this point, everybody in publishing is on high alert. So how can we human writers prove we're human? Well, happily, there's a new company called Human Intelligence, which appears with a little T for trademark pending. Yeah, can you really trademark human intelligence? It seems, anyway. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to provide authentication tools and services that help you prove your humanness and certify that your work is also 100% human. Of course, there's a fee. I took this blurb right off their website. Listen to this. AI is now sweeping the world. 74% of all content may be AI generated in the years to come. Maybe? I mean, or they predict, how can you have a percentage about what may happen in the future? Anyway, so they say human intelligence has created a patented algorithm incorporated into a platform that can reliably authenticate human content across multiple content types. So, Jesse, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what they're saying is they've created an AI program to search for AI. Is that right?
This sounds insane. This is insane. This is insane. They're using AI to prove to you that you are human. I guess, like, I see the marketing tool, like, so that you can, they'll give you some report that you can send to a publisher to be like, hey, I'm a real person, which again, they could figure out if they just called you on the phone.
Yeah.
So the most useful thing here, the most useful thing here, I think, would be if somehow whatever tools you're using, even if you're trying to avoid AI, if some part of it somehow made its way into your story, maybe this would find it out and then you could fix that. But the fact that they're using AI to do it, the fact they're using AI to do it is it's like Looney Tunes, right? This is like,
seems crazy to me. But I don't know. Would anybody do this? Lara, you've published 7 books. Have you ever had anybody question whether your work was actually your work?
I have
100% human?
I have not. And I don't think, although I kind of quit reading reviews a while ago, but I don't think anybody has tried to call me out. But I've heard other authors that I know and I'm friends with, I've heard that they get complaints in their reviews about readers accusing them of it being AI. And I do use the M-, which people are trying to claim is a signifier of having used AI. So I suppose it's just a matter of time.
Nobody else can learn that 3-finger macro.
That is like normal, and we're all trained in that. So that's just lunacy. That's one of the most ridiculous things I've heard of. Everyone, public service notice, like,
You can use an M-dash. It's okay.
You can use an M-dash and be a
should
human.
in some circumstances.
You absolutely should. We're trained to do it.
All right. Craft Corner. This time comes from, big surprise, our own Lara Bernhardt. I mean, why not? I hogged the interview last time, so now you can have Craft Corner. It seems only fair. Or perhaps this means we have no friends. But actually, we do. Lara has a lot to say based on her own experiences about the value of writing contests, right? So take it away, Lara.
Craft Corner.
One of the most daunting things we face as aspiring authors is how do we get started? Even if you've got the best manuscript ready to go and you think you're ready to publish, how do you get that foot in the door? In previous Craft Corners, we've had people talk about using writers' groups to connect with others and network. We've talked about attending conferences so that you can meet agents and publishers and maybe editors, maybe somebody who can give you another little boost and help elevate that manuscript even more. But something that I'd like to talk about today is writing contests and how writing contests can actually help you as you're trying to get that start. When you submit to writing contests, you don't want to send in that first draft. You want to have a polished, publishable manuscript. You want to get good, solid feedback on your very best writing, because a lot of writing contests do offer that benefit that the judges will send specific information back to the author about what worked and what could still use some help. If you advance on to the finals, though, if you maybe even take first place in competitions, that's something that can let you know your writing has really come a long way, that you are at the point where you probably are ready to be published. Somebody else has read your work and found real value in it. When I was first getting started, entering contests with maybe the first chapter of some of my work was very helpful to me. It is very validating when you get that positive feedback. I won quite a few contests when I was first getting started before I reached the point of having an agent and then attaining publication. That's another way that you can realize that you have made it to the point that you're ready to take that step. But in addition to helping get your name out, networking, validating your work, it's another way to show in your credentials that you have been read. You're not completely new. If you can put down when you're trying to land an agent, or maybe even when you are talking about yourself to potential readers, if you're able to say, I won this competition, that competition, maybe I took the top prize at another competition, when these writing contests consistently single your book out as being in the top of their entries, that's a good thing. That communicates to people that you're not just any writer, not just somebody who's thrown something together and you're tossing it out on Amazon. That's going to show that you are a real committed author and that you've taken all the steps that you can to craft an excellent reading experience. And I think that can sometimes nudge people a little bit into giving your book a chance. And that's something that we all need these days when there's so many books being published. We need that edge to convince readers to go ahead and try our work. I'll have to go ahead and mention that we have writing contests as part of WriterCon. And if you have your manuscript ready to go, that might be something that you want to consider. It might be time to take that next step. I know it's scary, but you can get your work out there, let other people read it, see what happens. Sometimes good things happen. All right, keep writing. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Lara Bernhardt. Now let's talk to Cristina LePort. Cristina LePort, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you here. Okay, we have a traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
It's interesting. There was a very famous author who did that, and actually they gave some advice to someone what to do for a writer, and the number one thing for a new writer would be to give him the element of style. That's a very important book. And she said that the second best advice is to shoot yourself while you are still happy.
Oh, ouch. But we can't be recommending that.
That is a famous author who said that. But that's not my advice. It just came to mind. My advice is that you have to really be passionate about writing because writing is a process that you have to do mostly for yourself. And then, of course, if you want people to read what you wrote, so it's not just for yourself. You absolutely need readers. But you have to be very passionate because the road to publication is very arduous and requires a lot of perseverance. And so unless you actually enjoy the process of writing and everything, I mean, you have to get up from a lot of rejection and go home. And the only thing I found that actually helps with rejection, because they always hurt, all of them. I mean, I had hundreds of rejection altogether. And the only thing that helps is to go home and write some more, because then you can say, well, that one you didn't like, you rejected it, but this one is new. Nobody's seen this one yet. So this could be the best ever.
That's great advice.
You have to be passionate, and then you have to persevere. But you can only persevere if you're passionate.
Right. I have a good friend who always, when he hears writers, complaining about this or that, says, "Hey, you finished up those monthly inventory reports yet?" The point being, no, because you don't have to do that kind of stuff because you're a writer. And I thought,
right.
That is the best answer. So as our listeners have probably already guessed, you were born in Italy, right?
Yes.
And you lived there for many years and started a university there, right?
Yes. I graduated from medical school in Bologna, Italy, my hometown. And then I came to the United States to do my specialty. I was in New York for my internship and internal medicine specialty, and then I was in Los Angeles for my cardiology specialty. Much later, actually, I had like a midlife crisis. I did my specialty 20 years after I practiced internal medicine for 20 years. Then I went into cardiology.
And then you made another pivot. Some people might have thought, I'm a cardiologist, this is enough, but you decided to pivot into writing novels. How did that happen?
Actually, while I was waiting to try to get into cardiology, which was a very hard thing to do in my late 40s, you have to match a program and this and that, and everybody was younger, So while I was doing that, I was reading different things. And it's interesting because up to that point, I actually never liked writing, because the only writing I had done was, during my schooling year in Italy. We had this thing that it was called the theme, il tema. They gave you a theme, and then you had to write for 2 hours. That was the assignment, and it was the biggest nightmare for me because I hated what they assigned me all the time. Yeah. But while I was waiting to get into cardiology, I started reading, and I came across this book by the author Ayn Rand. And Ayn Rand wrote a lot, of course, novels, but she also wrote a small book called The Art of Fiction.
Right.
And I got to tell you, if you know everything in that book, you actually are a very good writer, very good author. So I read, and it just came as almost like a revelation. If you are an author, you can invent a world and enter it, your world, and then you can make up all these characters that you want to meet, and then you can make anything you want happen. So I thought, this is wonderful. You're just in your own world, all by yourself, with your characters. And so I just decided, I was in my late 40s, I said, I'm going to try to write a novel. And of course I did, but that was my first, the book doesn't even come out yet. But of course I had no training, no formal training in writing. So one thing is when you read a book, you don't really care. First character, first person, third person, all those things, you know.
Right, inciting incident.
Well, if you want to publish, you need to know all those things. So it took me a long time because I had to, you know, when I got serious, I had to I have to hire a writing coach because I didn't have time to go to groups and I was older already. So I had to a crash course in writing. And so for 3 years, we went over the novel over and over. So for me to learn, basically, you know, the tricks of the trade, you know, the story was there, but not the technique. So it took me about 3 years. And then after that, you know, tried to get an agent and this and that. That took me several years. And finally, I hit it. You know, I finally found an agent and eventually a publisher. But it was a very difficult and road, you know.
We are familiar with
many,
this road.
many rejections and a lot of work.
We host an annual writers conference called WriterCon, and of course we always have agents there, lots, more than a dozen this year, because I know how hard it is to make that connection. I'm curious though, okay, you could have written a million things. Someone might have expected you to write, you know, a memoir about cardiology cases or something. Why medical thrillers?
Well, I never really thought of doing anything else. First, I loved thrillers. I always loved thrillers. I read thrillers. Most of the time, I read fiction. And also, you know, you have to write what you know. And so my world, there was a medical world. It was a medical world for like already 2 decades. So, you know, and if you think about it, if you want to write thrillers, the medical world is a wonderful backdrop because it deals with the pressure of time all the time. You know, you have to find the diagnosis, you know, otherwise the patient dies. And the same thing when you write a thriller, there is always the pressure of time because something has to happen, otherwise, you know, people fall asleep.
Otherwise,
you know,
it's boring.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have to have very high stakes. Well, what's higher stakes than life or death? So, you know, medical world is always life or death. And they're all actually, there is an overlap between the quality of an author and the quality of a doctor because, like, you know, first of all, we both have to know how to read people because that's how the doctor makes a diagnosis. You have to read people. Sure. And the author has to read people to create characters. And so that's a big overlap. And then again, you know, the pressure of time and all these other things that are, and then of course also the ability to integrate clues. You know, the doctor has to integrate clues to make a diagnosis, and the author to create a mystery, and then you know the solution of the mystery. So I guess because of this overlap and the fact that for 2 decades, and then I also wanted to, when I retire, which I am retired now for a few years. I wanted to stay in medicine, but not with the same very high pressure of being responsible for true life or death. So now I just kill people in the books.
Safer. You know, the whole American healthcare system has been the subject of a lot of attention in recent years, some good, some less so. Do you get into that in your books? Like, what's right, what's wrong, how could we do it better, that kind of thing?
I try to stay away from politics in the book in a sense, because fiction is not, it should not be teaching you anything really. I mean, it could be about a very important subject. I try to write about important subjects, and some of them are political and all that. But it should really mainly, the purpose is not teaching you or making a big point, is to entertain you. So I try to stay away. Of course, I'm influenced by what I think is right or wrong, strongly influenced. And so, but as long as it's integrated, completely integrated with the story, it's not just like you're proselytizing, just throwing it in to make a point, you know, just to try to you know, proselytize or to teach something to the readers. You're just, if it's integrated with the story, so you show characters doing something, and then the reader has to come to the conclusion. And of course, if you're good enough that you actually make them do the right thing for the reader to arrive to the conclusion you would like the reader to arrive to, then but it's something, is a process, is like a second part. There are two parts. The author has an idea, and then there's to pick concretes according to the idea, put them in the book, all these concretes, and the reader is not passive, is active. He will see the concrete and then arrives to some conclusion that might actually be sometimes different than the original idea, but at least he's going to think about it. So it has to be very integrated, but it cannot just be thrown in as a site, because then it's just not going. It's going to be very flat, and the reader are going to put the book down, and they're going to be, not interested, at the very least, maybe even, not happy.
Well, that's a good segue into my next question. I've read the description of your book, Dissection, and I have to ask you, where did you get the idea for that book?
Oh, really? Now that you asked, for dissection. This is where I got it. There was the card.
Yes.
And this was a commercial about aspirin.
Okay.
I was very depressed because my original book wasn't going anywhere, and I did, I got all the editors, everything. I did everything right. It was years and hundreds of rejection. So finally, one day, I was kind of, really down, and I was watching television, and this was this commercial, and there was a man in a suit, and his secretary brings him a card, and he reads the card, and the card says, "Your heart attack will arrive tomorrow." And of course, they say, well, wouldn't it be nice to do that, or to know, so that you can take aspirin? That was the commercial. So I look at that, I said, my God, that's my book. That's the one that's going to get published. And so fantastic. I changed it to "Your heart attack will arrive in 1 hour." And then I created the entire plot around this one card in the dissection.
I don't think we've ever had people tell us.
It took me months.
Yeah, their inspiration came from.
Why would they send this card? How would they cause a heart attack? What would be the reason? And then not just one man, but it expands, because, and then what if it happened to somebody in a high power? And who would do that? For what purpose?
Right.
But that's what
Sounds like something the Joker would send to one of his victims. Your heart attack will start in 1 hour. Ah!
Yeah.
That's amazing. Inspiration can come from literally anything. I love it.
Yeah, you have to keep your eyes open.
Is this, with this book, is that when you started using a writing coach, or had you already been in contact with them?
The writing coach was with the very first book I wrote. And that one is going to come out next year.
Okay. Fantastic.
It's going to come out next year. It's going to, if you want to, it's going to be Dying to Remember. And but that is my first written book, and that's going to be the prequel to the other two, but it has nothing to do with Defrosted. Defrosted is I have a little series of 3 books, but Defrosted is by itself, is a little bit sci-fi, is like unique.
Okay. Fantastic. How did the writing coach help you? What was that process like for you?
We went through sentence by sentence of my very first book, and basically she told me everything I was doing wrong technically. Okay. Like I said, when you read a book, you don't care about the first person, third person, or whatever. But when you are trying to be published, you can't switch person. There are rules. Right. Then you have to follow, unless you're when you're very famous, you can kind of break them. But when you're trying to get published, there are rules. You can't switch person, for example, within the chapter, unless you put those dots or those lines, and then it's a different session. Right. That's one example. And then you have to know how to do the tags. Tags are those things that are in between dialogue. And then, all those little nitty-gritty things that when you write, you have to pay attention to. And when you read, it just flows, but if you read something and it changes person all of a sudden, you feel jarred to some extent. And who's talking? Sometimes you read books and you don't know who's talking, because they don't tell you. And it's like you have to, okay, this is the 20th thing. Let me count. So the even words, if you have to do that, you may as well go to sleep, right? Because
You've been popped out of the book.
Not
That's
good.
right. You're not paying attention to the story anymore.
You're writing a thriller and the readers do that. Not good.
Yeah. Well, what does your writing day look like now? You mentioned that you are retired.
I'm retired, so I have a lot more time. Right now, I'm trying to work on the launch of the new book, Defrosted, who's coming out in June, in just a couple of weeks, and also I'm editing some of my future books. But so that's basically my time is divided. I'm not right now. Presently, I'm just editing something written already, and then the launch. But obviously, there are times when I have something new. But I try to have some hours. Maybe they're not exactly set hours, but I try to devote it, obviously, sometime every day to finish the things I have to do, so that then I can go into my world, which is always nice.
Christina, I warned you that toward the end, some of my questions would get kind of woo-woo, so settle in. No, if you could go anywhere, if you could do anything, what writer would you most like to sit down and have dinner with?
Whoa. But that's to be alive, right?
No, I said you could do anything.
Well, I mean, I really admire Ayn Rand, so
I thought you might
I could
say
talk
that.
to her because I've never met her.
Yeah, is it the novels as well as the art of fiction that you love? Yes,
but the novel, also the philosophy. I know she's very controversial, but I like the philosophy. There is definitely a deep influence in Defrosted because there is a clash, between independence and submission, and in Defrosted, and controls. Is a dystopian government that controls everything. And so she wrote, obviously, about something like that.
Anthems. Yeah, sounds like.
So definitely I would like to sit down and talk with her, see if she likes my book. Maybe she can give me a blurb.
Well, you may have already answered this, but what's coming next? You mentioned that your first book is now going to be your fourth book, right? And beyond that?
Beyond, I have this series. It's called the Minor and the Mulville series. The Minor is a PI, private investigator, who has a special brain. Is almost Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson in one head because he had some experimental surgery, and his brain was damaged. And that's the story in the next book, which would be the prequel. That was the very first book. And then, of course, I have the two other books which are out. Dissection is in Dissection. And he's also in Change of Heart, which is background heart transplant. He's trying to investigate
fantastic
some mobster there, and then I have two other books that are coming out also with Minor and Mulville. I really like those two characters, and but this one, the Defrosted, the one that's coming out now, is a very special book because it's independent, and it was the second book I wrote. And I'm very excited about that coming out. And it's about people getting frozen now and defrosted in the future. And so
interesting.
It's all about cryonics.
Yeah, it's science fiction,
cryonics
Jesse.
It's not science fiction, very much science fiction anymore. So I'm excited about it.
We'll be looking forward to that. Christina, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Just a few parting words. Surely you didn't think you were going to get out of here without me urging you to check out my new book, The Superman Wars, A Battle for Truth, Justice, and an American Icon. It's the story of Jerry Siegel, the guy who came up with the idea for Superman and his family's fight to regain control of his creation. It's a story that I think is important just well beyond the world of comic books. It's important to all creators because you got to make sure this doesn't happen to you, which is one of the themes we stress every year at WriterCon, right, Lara?
Absolutely. How to protect yourself and
right.
your work in progress. Yep.
Yep. And a chance to meet other writers. And we got more than 60 speakers. We got more than a dozen agents. Never be a better chance to sit down and talk, not for some severely limited 1 minute or 2 minutes, but basically as long as you need to pitch your book to agents, publishers, or others, contests, we do it all. Not that I'm, immodest or anything, but I think we put on a good conference and it seems to grow every year. So if you're looking for a way to make connections in the writing world or to boost your knowledge about what's going on out there, consider WriterCon. It takes place in Oklahoma City every Labor Day weekend. Our website is writercon.com. And we've got a small group retreat coming up in July, a much, much smaller group of people, so we can work with you both in small groups and one-on-one, actually reading your manuscript pages and trying to give you useful feedback. So the perfect lineup, Lara, right, is first come to the retreat, perfect your manuscript,
Absolutely.
Then take it to WriterCon and sell it.
That would work.
That's the perfect scenario. All right. Until next time, people, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.